to them. So welcome everybody. There we go. Let me share my screen and then we'll be ready to go. All right. Morning, Eddie. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. I'm Karen Weaver. I'm the manager of the Barnes Fund. I know most of you, if not all of you. We are going to talk today about the grant number 3, which is the Shared Equity Homeownership Program as part of the Round 12 ARPA funds. We're going to go through and let me just kind of switch to my next slide so you can see what we're going to cover. If you've been on these calls before, you know that this is kind of the format that we typically go with. We'll talk about the 3 different grant types. We'll talk about briefly, we'll talk strongly about the one that we're here today for, grant number 3, which is shared equity homeownership. And then we'll kind of talk through all of the different pieces of the grant, especially focusing on the new property that's available for this particular grant. Angie will be here to answer questions for us if needed. And so we'll go through all of those, but I do want to go through and do some introductions. Let me let everybody know that we will be recording this session. We are recording this session. So if you have any, if you want to take a look at this later, if the holiday spirit gets hold of you and you say, gosh, I can't remember anything they said, then you can come back and take a look at it on the Barnes Fund page. So let's talk about introductions. So as I said, I'm Karen. Angie, would you mind introducing yourself?
Good morning. I'm Angie Hubbard, Housing Director at Planning.
Great. Rashida?
Hey, good morning. I'm Rashida Pardue, the Housing Trust Fund Analyst.
All right. If you guys don't mind, I'm not sure if we've got anybody on who's new to Barnes, but if you are, as you introduce yourself and say which agency you're with, if you don't mind, just let us know if you're new to Barnes or have not applied before. So Brian, I'm going to start with you.
Morning, everyone. Brian Drobnik, Director of Development at Holiday Ventures.
Super. Mary Beth?
Rebecca Mize, Development Coordinator with LDG Development, and we are not new to Barnes, and we love Barnes.
Okay, sounds good. And Mary Beth?
Mary Beth Eichert, Communications and Community Impact for the Housing Fund, and we are also a Barnes recipient. We manage the Community Land Trust, and we have some home rehab grant dollars.
Super. Eddie? Oh, Eddie, can you hear me?
Looks like he's muted.
Yeah, okay. Dan, can you go next?
Yeah, Director of Housing Development, Affordable Housing Resources. Thank you.
Super. Rebecca, you said you. Henry?
Hey, good morning. My name is Henry Miller, and I'm with Living Development Concept, Inc. I'm the Executive Director.
Welcome, welcome. Terry?
Good morning. I'm Terry Woodmore. I am helping Affordable Housing Resources with this.
Super.
Wait a minute. Terry?
Hey, Angie.
Oh my gosh. All right. Sorry. This is awesome.
Housing is a small world, for sure. There you go. All right. Eddie, can you hear us? Still having trouble getting to Eddie. Okay. Let's see. Who'd we miss? I see Kay Kretsch, but I'm not sure what the first name is. Oh, and Mr. or Ms. Kretsch, if you're on, you are on mute. All right. Well, we will introduce people or let them come back in as they can. I think it looks like Eddie left and was going to come back in and try again. Excuse me. So appreciate you guys all being here today. As we get started, I want to share that, as I said, this is round 12. It is the 3 American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funding round. And some exciting news that happened is that 2 days ago, the Housing Trust Fund Commission approved extending the deadline for round 12. Mary Beth, you and I were talking back and forth about that, but they did in fact approve it. So the grant application deadline will be January 22nd. All of this is now up on the website, on the Barnes website. But if you have any questions, let me know. So the extension goes to January 22nd, 24. It will be due at 11:59 midnight. The second thing that they did is they removed all of the funding caps for maximum grant limits on the grants in this round. So if you need more than you had originally expected to be able to apply for, then make a good case and let us know what you're looking for. And then the most exciting part is that we have surplus properties that have been made available by Metro Water. And we're going to talk quite a bit about the property that is available, excuse me, for this grant and really talk through it so you guys can get a sense of what that would look like. I think everybody already knows this, but I'll just throw this slide up there to show that we do have 3 grants that are available. You certainly can apply for more than one grant if you have more than one project. And again, the webinar and the PowerPoint will be up on our website for all 3 of these sessions. The other 2 sessions were held yesterday. So this one is, we're going to go into detail about the shared equity homeownership development. As you guys can see, this really is geared toward homeowners. It is geared particularly toward homeowners who have experienced historical barriers or demonstrated inequities in homeownership. And we're of course looking at up to 80% area median income. All right, so this is the total budget amount that's available, the 9.5 million. We do, as always, the Metro Council has mandated that we have a set aside of 20%. And so if organizations, small organizations, those who have budgets under 2 million, if they are interested in applying, that set aside is kind of earmarked for them to use. And the maximum grant, if you go under that small organization set aside, the maximum grant is $750,000. However, if for some reason we don't have any small organizations that go after that money, or if we have money left over, then that money will roll back into the main pot. The developer fee on this one is, the maximum developer fee is 20% on this program. It is worth noting that as we go through the scoring, our reviewers will award higher points if somebody is needing less of a developer fee. So if you've got 10% is going to work for your project, then by all means throw that in there because that will help you on your points. And then of course, as with everything Barnes, now affordability period is 30 years. Let's see. So we talked about the incomes. It is worth noting that that all of our income eligibility will be based on actual household size, as stated by HUD. We talked about historical barriers. We are asking for folks to not just tell us about the barriers that your population have faced or the inequities that they face, but back that up with HMDA data, whatever it is that you need to do to show us that you really understand this population. And we also making sure that this is open to home buyers regardless of immigration status. All right, the big news. Let's talk about the property. Angie, I can walk through this one and you can be available for questions. Is that how we want to do that? Okay. So the 2 options that you have when you come to talk about the property that you're going to use as part of your project on the application. Option 1 is if you would like to request the Metro-owned property at 136 Jacksonian Drive in Hermitage. We are going to talk through in just a second. I'll show you a picture of it. It's the same information that's available on our website, but just to make sure that everybody has a chance to see that. This is a Metro-owned property. It is not a back tax property. It is a surplus property from Metro Water, for which we are very grateful. It is only available to applicants applying for this grant. The other excuse me. The other property that we have is only available for those applying for grant number 2, the cooperative housing for families. So this is tied to just this grant. It will not be transferred through quitclaim. It is going to be the long-term affordability is going to be secured by either ground lease, and Metro is not going to charge a lease fee, or put into a land trust. So those are our two options on that.
Let me just add, we're going to leave it up to the developer or the applicant to tell us which method they prefer based on their structure.
Perfect. All right. Here are some of just kind of the summary sheet, tells you about the zoning and how this will work. So in just a second, I'm going to show you a picture and we'll talk a little bit more about the zoning, but this is a 2.79 acre vacant land site. There's nothing there to be taken down. It is currently zoned as RS10, so it would be good for single family homes. It would not be good. I believe, Angie, it could be used for two family, but could not be used for multifamily. Is that correct?
Right. And under the current zoning, under the subdivision regs could get 6 to 7 lots. To go any denser would require rezoning, which is, we're not looking for that because these are, I need to remind everybody, these are ARPA dollars that have a hard deadline. We do have to get a policy change because it's civic because it was a metro use, and but that's something planning can do administratively. So that's just a very simple policy change. If someone is proposing to go denser than what is currently allowed by zoning, not only would you have to go through rezoning, it would require a fuller policy change. So we're actually not in favor of that because of the timeline.
The timing, yes. And I did mention that everything as you're doing your due diligence, think about how all of those land use policies and zoning are going to affect your project. But as I've said before, and I think all of you know, but I'll restate, the project is due by December. The project is due to be completed and all funds expended by December 31st, 2026. It looks likely that this round will go to Metro Council for final approval of contracts in May, probably late May, with those with property. And so, it's going to be a tight timeline there. So, and it's not something that we can extend because we do not want any of these ARPA dollars to get away from us. So Angie, Dan had asked about, can you form your own land trust? And I think you said your answer was yes. Okay. All right. Here is the property itself. As you can see, it's right on the river. It does have a slope down to the river. So, and again, Angie, I'm gonna get you to correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like that the back of the back 100 feet is floodway, floodplain, sloped, conservation policy. So it cannot be used. I mean, that part would not be used for building, but the main part of the lot is, Angie, is flat and is not looking at floodplain. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we've had both of the sites that we're offering vetted by our land development team and our design studio team to make sure that they are developable.
Great. As we mentioned, I think earlier, the current policy on this is Civic T3CL, and it is surrounded by neighborhood maintenance policy. So you would that's something that the zoning department or the planning department, I'm sorry, is already I think they'll just make that policy what the rest of the neighborhood is. Yeah. And then here are the details about how many lots can go there and what the size of those lots needs to be. So as you can see here, frontage of 56 feet. The lots need to be about 16,000 square feet, and it is 7 individual lots. Let's see if there was anything else I wanted to tell y'all about this one. Doesn't look like, okay. And we will have time for questions at the end of this, so we'll have about 15 minutes for questions at the end of this session. Okay. If you
I would,
go
let
ahead.
me add, this is raw land that doesn't have infrastructure. So it would be, we would expect that the development costs would include all the site improvements that would be required to get to these 7 lots.
Gotcha. But it does have Metro water available. It does have electricity available. It's all right there. Gotcha. All right. Well, let's talk about what happens if you don't get this beautiful property. On your application, when you fill out your application, you will be able to click on request Metro-owned property as one of your options as you go into your application on SurveyMonkey Apply. If you already have your own site, or you don't get awarded the site that Metro has, then these are the rules that would be kind of under option 2, which is if you're providing your own land. And so in option 2, again, back to the fact that we're on this super tight time schedule because of ARPA, you would need to go ahead, you would need to have strong land control for your development. We'd really like to see deed in hand, a ground lease, or signed sales contract. The property needs to already be zoned, or at least be able to be zoned within the timeline. And that means that you're not just starting those conversations about zoning. You really, before you apply, you really should go ahead and talk. If it's not already zoned, go ahead and talk with planning and zoning staff. On your application, we'll ask you who'd you talk with. And also ask you to attach a letter of support from the council member. So we're just keep in mind that everything we're doing, unlike a regular Barnes round where we've got a little bit of flexibility on how long we can make a contract last, this one is really, really tight, and funds cannot be accessed until after the zoning is approved. If you don't provide that documentation, we will not be able to even to consider you for funding. So just keep in mind that's super important. Eligible applicants, like all of our projects, 501c3 nonprofits. If the nonprofit has 51% of the 51% control of the project, then working with a for-profit developer is certainly welcome. We do have, our regular guidelines on positive cash flow. Again, all of this is in the application. It's all in the grant policy, and it's all in the scoring matrix, but just wanted you guys to have this here as well. Any organization, and this is the lead nonprofit, the lead applicant, whose budget is over 500,000 would need to provide an audit without findings. We would, if you are an organization that is between 500,000, sorry, that should be between 200,000 and 500,000. Sorry about that. Then you would need external CPA prepared financials. And then we are asking that the lead applicant, the nonprofit, also provide your most recent board monthly financial report. Not interested in that being CPA prepared, but what we're looking for there is your audit, or your, if you've got an audit or you've got something that's several months old, that doesn't really tell us where you are right now. So we're asking for those recent board monthly financials, just so we can see kind of where things are at this moment. We've talked extensively about the ARPA deadline. As always, Metro allows a 2-year contract. The way that we've talked about this, and Angie, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I know yesterday when we were talking about Grant 2, Hannah pointed out that we won't be making extensions past 12/31 of 26. Correct. But if somebody got to the end of their contract and they were within a couple of months of finishing, then we could extend to that date. So if your contract was only through June of 26 and you needed just a couple more months, we could extend it to the date. What we will be doing, and we really want you guys to think hard about these timelines that you're submitting, is we will be carefully looking at milestones, and we will be checking those milestones as we go along, because the thing we do not want to have happen is that you get 3/4 of the way through the project and then realize that you're not going to be able to complete it, and that then there's no time for somebody else to use those monies in a way to help housing. So we are really going to be working with our grantees all the way through to make sure that the timeline can be met, that the funds can be expended, and then if they can't be expended on this project, then we'll ask council to let us reassign them to a different use. Do you want to add anything on that one? Okay. Okay, so in terms of the application itself, we have we've set it up this year where there are 3 kind of categories of questions. The first 4 are minimum standards, and these are your thresholds. These are, if you don't meet these criteria, you don't even get to the review stage. So it's really important that you follow these. The first one, as you can imagine, is just completing the application fully, uploading all the attachments. Financial standing, we do want you to send in the correct level of documentation for your program and answer all the financial questions on the application. If you, in terms of organizational information, you want that the lead organization to be strong, but you also want to make sure that whoever is in your partnership also is governed by this requirement of no lawsuits, outstanding safety or wage claims. So we want to make sure that that there's not going to be anything that's going to delay or cause a problem. The developer fee, as I said, is 20% for this program. And then the last thing is due diligence, and that is really talk about what you've done. Show us that you are all over the zoning, permitting, and codes requirements for your project. If you've met with Metro officials, you need to tell us who that is. Provide details about the zoning. When we get to the design question, you're going to be providing information about which level of design you're providing. So we're really just trying to make sure that everybody is ready to take this project on.
Karen, let me add here,
Yeah.
this is going to be something that's going to start showing up in regular rounds too. What we're finding is, especially with newer organizations, a lack of understanding about the permitting and codes requirements specifically, and it's holding up projects and it's escalating cost. We're working on our side to try to get better with our other development services partners on getting projects through the queue. But when folks don't have completed plans to submit, it holds up everything. So we're having a really good understanding of what's required. The other thing to elevate is if you've purchased a property and you've held on to it for a number of years, don't assume the same capacity, like stormwater capacity requirements apply as when you bought it, because those can change. So that's something that we found with another project. And so make sure that you are taking your even if you've held on to this property for a while, ask questions about what applies to it now, not what applied to it when you actually purchased it. So just keep those things in mind, and this is going to start showing up in all the future rounds.
Speaking of those future rounds, if you are listening to all of this and you think, hey, I've got a great project, but I'm not going to be able to meet that 12/31/26 ARPA deadline, round 13, we are expecting to open in late January. So that will be coming hot on the heels of this one. And that will be just a regular Barnes General funding that will have, our regular categories of grants. So just know that that's coming right on the heels of this. Okay, the second section of our application, and again, most of the questions are basically the same as what you guys have seen in the past. It's really just the way that we've kind of thought through the organization of them. These required elements are where you start your scoring. We are looking, of course, for the development team experience. We want to know not just about your experience as the nonprofit, but also as the developer. As usual, we'll ask for resumes of key staff, but we're really trying to show experience with creating or preserving housing. In this case, we really want experience with shared equity homeownership, and so if that's something that's new to you, then make sure you've got a partner on board that is experienced with it. Excuse me. The second section is we've just changed our capital stack questions to funding sources and uses, because we really want to understand not only where those funds are coming from, but also how you're going to be using them. We do have, as always, the portion of the developer fee needs to be 20% or less, but we also want you to describe how that developer fee is going to be spent, including if you've got consultants that you're going to be paying. For that, you'll need to include the names, the fee estimates. In a perfect world, you'd already have a contract with them. Maybe you've worked with them in previous projects, but just give us as much information as you can. And then on site control, zoning, and development timeline, of course, we'll have you ID the site that you're going to use. We'll need you to show, as I said, what type of site control you have. documenting what those conversations you've had, or tell us kind of where you are. And then this timeline showing completion by 12/31/26, it's not going to be sufficient to just say, hey, we're going to finish this by 12/31/26. We really want to know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it by, and remember those milestones. Okay, now we go into the meat of the applications. The section 3 is the evaluation criteria. These are the ones that are evaluated by external reviewers, and these questions will be 15 points apiece. The project type is going to be focused on how are you going to do this? You know, are you doing new construction? Are you doing acquisition and rehab? Talk to us about your philosophy on how do you create shared equity housing. We really want to understand what your plans are and how this fits into the experience that you've already had. When you
And
talk,
Karen, let me
oh yeah,
clarify, because I know this was a question that came up earlier, was this is a development subsidy to create shared equity homeownership. So the money is going into the sticks and bricks construction for the ultimate outcome to be shared equity homeownership.
gotcha. So if somebody does provide just is focused on the counseling services and things like that, they'll need to partner with somebody who's going to be doing the sticks and bricks. For marketing and outreach, we do want you to provide an affirmative marketing plan. Show us that you're collaborating with trusted partners. You know, let us know what data you're looking at. How did you make your decisions about how this project is needed and how it's going to meet a need? Especially going back to that question of, are you serving a population of people who have historically been denied access? So that's an important part of this. And even though we don't hit it on every single slide, it is really critical. I will say that part of that marketing and outreach, even if you have not done this in the past, we would like for you to include your plans of reaching out to various communities, cultures, neighborhoods, languages, whatever those partners are that are not being reached. And that's really where you're going to want to partner with your community groups, ideally more than one, you know, not just to put them on the page as a support letter, but really significant relationships so that you can understand your population. Participation engagement is the homeownership counseling part, really educating the home buyers pre and post purchase. Make sure that they understand that affordability window of 30 years. Talk to them about, you know, help them really be prepared for this level of homeownership, and really use your understanding of all the aspects of shared equity homeownership to build a strong program with them. In terms of the quality design, the commission does expect, the Housing Trust Fund Commission does expect that all of the projects will have thoughtful and appealing design, that it's going to be built with high quality products and systems, you know, that it's going to fit in with the neighborhood character. I'm not sure if, Angie, do you know off the top of your head what kind of age range these houses that are in the neighborhood are? Okay. We'll just take a look at that. Look at the designs around you. We do ask that every project be sensitive to universal design, visitability standards. We do want you to have the universal design checklist, at least 10 criteria. If you meet more than 10 criteria on that universal design checklist, then of course that will be considered in the scoring matrix, and you do need to put that application in with your you do need to put that checklist in with your application. And then the level of design is going to need to be included in that question as well. Just tell us, as Angie just said, how far along are you on this? Are these, you know, are you looking at design development kind of plans? Is this still schematic or concept? Whatever it is that you're looking at. All right, sustainability and resilience, coming right on the heels of the tornado. We know, yet again, another tornado. Barnes really wants to support projects that are thinking about the sustainability and resilience aspect. Now that could be weather issues, because, you know, Nashville, if you look at the Nashville risks that we have, we really check off all the boxes, everything from ice issues to tornadoes and then floods. So we're just, you know, kind of batting 1,000 there. But we also want to look at what the reduced environmental impacts are. If you have a way to partner with an organization that's really focused on this, that'd be great. We do want to have at least 5 criteria from the energy efficiency and sustainability checklist covered. Another piece that is very big in Nashville is the whole heat mitigation issue, because we have so many places that are heat islands. I don't know that the metro property has that issue because it's right on the river, but if you're working in an area that has heat island issues, then address that. I know that you can reach out to Metro's sustainability director and get some facts about that. We will be looking at things like transit options, and again, like everything, put that checklist into your application. In terms of transit, what we're looking for there is how walkable is this area? If somebody doesn't drive, are there shuttles that are available to go to stops? Can they get to grocery stores? Can they get to, can they get a subsidy for WeGo tickets? There are certainly grocery stores in that area, not too far away. But we just want to make sure that everything is that people have the ability to get to it. And then the last section of the application is bonus points. These are 5 points each. Again, none of these are required, but if you are doing these things, we'd love to give you points for that. We're looking at the DEAI practices, the diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. And that's not just about your organization and your board and how you function, but it's also about how much are you involving the community. What we're really looking for there is the recognition that that kind of diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion translates to kind of what we would call cultural humility, to say, are these products that we're offering, are they appropriate for the population that we are focused on? On deeply affordable housing, if you're going to be able to serve families that are households that are below 60%, tell us that. Tell us how many you're planning to do. You'll get scoring. Scoring will be adjusted based on whether you're looking at 10% of your units are going to be for 60%, or whether it's 5% or none. But we really are just looking at the fact that those units below 60% AMI for homeownership are so challenging to build and maintain, but they are so needed, especially in our market right now. And it really will help with the community safety net housing. We talked a little bit about promotion of healthy communities, and on that, what we're looking for there, excuse me guys, I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat today. We're looking for behavioral, physical health of the needs of residents. We're looking at, health conscious features in their design. Is there, are there sidewalks? Are there walking paths? Are there, what is needed? And then what is being provided? One of the things we'd love to do is have you talk to the residents or talk to the organizations that are serving that community or the public health officials, find out what the issues are there, because Nashville has such a high degree of disparity for health access. And so we're trying to make sure that these programs that we support are research-based, data-based, to allow us to really understand what those needs and equities are, and to see how your subdivision or your development can affect those. In particular, one thing that we do have called out on the matrix is that if you are looking at things like the social determinants of health, or evidence-based strategies to really just address health equity issues in particular, if that's something that you guys are already working on, definitely call that out so we can look at that for bonus. Urban zoning overlay, again, the grant policy, the application have information about how to find that that information, but we're really just looking at how, what's the high need for housing, is there access, all of that. Walkability and food access, again, is something, again, these are still on the bonus levels, but we are looking for how livable is the place that you're creating. And so we want to know, does it have access to grocery stores? We've heard horror tales of people, talking about having to spend 2 hours getting on the bus with their kids to go get groceries, and then go, and that's just to get them there and back, not even counting the grocery time. So food access is a huge issue. And so we just want to make sure that people are addressing that. This walkscore.com is a resource that's available to you. You don't have to use it, but just looking at what that those bonus points. We want to give you as many points as we can. The revised timeline, again, as we said, the commission approved that we will be having, excuse me, that applications will be due on January 22nd. The commission will vote on recommendations on March 26th. And then we are going to try to keep everything pretty tight. We're going to start contract discussions with folks right away. We're going to, try to get those ready immediately, get through the whole documentation and mandatory referral period if there's any property donations like the Metro owned property. And then what we would like to do is, if you're not asking for property, we're shooting for having those ready to go to council to be approved for contracts on May 7th. And on May 21st would be the projects if they do have property, if they do have the Metro owned property included. Resources are the same as always. The webpage, as I said, it's all been updated. The round 12 ARPA grant policy is on there, the scoring matrix. And then if you have any questions, please send them to Rashida or myself. And now we're ready for questions.
Hi, Rebecca from LDG. Thank you guys so much for doing this. We really appreciate all the information you provided. I do have a question about two. One, is there a per unit limit for how much funds you can get? And is there a per project limit on how much funds you can get?
We had originally said that there was, we had a maximum grant included in this grant, but then a maximum grant amount. But we, when the Housing Trust Fund Commission removed that on Tuesday, then I think what we're looking for is how are you going? It's not a limit per se. There's no regulations about it, but what we're looking for is how far is that money going to go? How many units are you able to do? How are we going to be able to make the biggest bang for the buck for what you're planning to do? Angie, you have anything to add on that?
No, I mean, the short answer is no to either of those questions, but I would refer you to the evaluation matrix to see how you will be evaluated based on your capital stack. So if you're looking at 100% barns being the only subsidy, that's going to be evaluated differently than someone who's proposing a mixture of funding.
Thank you
and
so much.
I do want to mention too that in the application and the scoring matrix, it does call out that you cannot use catalyst funds as any part of your capital stack.
Okay, good to know. Thank you very much.
Sure. Other questions?
Karen, I have a couple. So there's a 30-year restriction on affordability, right? So,
Right.
and I assume that these are intended to be available for purchase and ownership upon completion. So if an income qualified household buys one of the units, does that mean that within that 30-year window, if they sell it, that it has to be sold to an income qualified household? Okay.
Yes.
What happens if, are they prohibited them from simply, say, quit claiming to a relative, or if the owners die and it goes into estate and whoever the heir is above income qualification thresholds, how would that be handled?
That's a really good question, Brian. Angie, can you talk
I
about
believe
that?
our policy has been that they can leave it to heirs, but if the heirs sell it, they have to sell to an income eligible buyer.
Okay. And then second question, I guess, is the concept shared equity, does that come into play at that second point of sale?
No, the beginning. It's
the
from
beginning.
the very beginning.
Could you maybe give us an example of how that would function?
It would be in how you propose to do the shared equity structure. We're not going to dictate what that looks like. I refer you to Grounded Solutions for how the shared equity model works.
Okay.
Do you have an example of what you're, Brian, sorry to interrupt you. You can keep going. Sorry.
No, we didn't.
Do you have an example of like what you've been looking at that you're thinking of doing? Because I am a little confused of what our aim is right now.
So the reason we're doing shared equity is to allow homeownership at a lower income level, because it's really hard to achieve that. So with a shared equity model, which has already been done through the Barnes Fund, with other, and the housing funds on here and other organizations, we, it's where there's a subsidy that comes in that also helps make the homeownership the homeowner not have as much equity, but the equity realized on the back end is also shared between the original, whoever has the subsidy in it to make that piece work, and the homeowner. So they're not realizing 100% of the equity on the backside. We're not putting in the subsidy for that. We're looking for the
Looks like Angie froze for a second. So I think we're looking for the applicant to come in and have that as part of your package, is where, if you're going to have assistance, where's that going to come from? How is it going to work? You know, if it's coming in from another organization, what are their guidelines? Just as an example, you know, when MDHA is brought in with home monies, then MDHA, then the buyer or the nonprofit really is agreeing that they will follow MDHA rules about maximum sales prices for those 30 years. So it's really, really critical that when you talk about the homeownership counseling part of this, that those homeowners understand what is it that they're committing to, and what you as a nonprofit are committing to say, okay, you know, if the first buyer sells to somebody, yes, it has to be income eligible, but that's true if the 10th project sells too. It's all going to be covered. It's all going to be secured by a deed of restrictive covenant. It's going to go with the property, and it's going to be on there for 30 years. So it's really important that your buyers know there is no part of this that's going to allow them to realize the types of gains that are happening in other parts of Nashville, where you can come in and you know, buy something and then make 100% yield. But really, we are looking at how that we want the buyer to benefit some, but like, for instance, as I mentioned with MDHA home funds, there are guidelines on not only what the incomes can be, but what the maximum sales price can be and things like that, so that the homes continue to stay affordable for the 30 years. And as we've had this conversation with real estate agents, what I would say is, if you buy a property that's being sold through a Barnes grant, then you are signing on for all of that. If you don't like those guidelines or those rules, then Barnes is not the right fit for you, because we really are obligated to make sure that these are going to work for the 30 years. We're not interested in making something affordable for a couple of years and then it goes back up to market value.
Hey,
Yep.
Karen,
Go ahead, Eddie.
what? Okay, I'm not Dan, but I'm Dan's other.
I know.
All right. Here's okay. One issue is that y'all mentioned the housing fund is doing shared equity. Well, AHR does shared equity too. So if you're going to mention names, please mention all of them. And then number two, and we've done over 30 of these just in the last year or so. So the other thing is we had a question on the timeline. It's taken us 6 months to get this property approved to build on. And so, you know, we can make a 3-year deadline, but we cannot control codes. We cannot control planning. I mean, it's so bad that ULI has a committee to see if we can speed it up a little bit. And I think the committee is going to have great success. I think Angie is part of that committee. And so I think we're going to have great success, but there's just the whole first year we have no control over. I mean,
Yeah, I hear you.
Stormwater has already said right now they're 3.4 months, 5.4 months to get through stormwater. And this property has a huge stormwater issue because it goes into one of the main creeks that feeds into the Cumberland. So I'm just saying, is there a way that you all could say that we have made all the draws on the grant by December of 26, but may still be 2 months waiting on a UNO, because that's very slow too.
You know, Eddie, I was actually, or is it Eddie, or I
Yeah,
think
it's
Eddie, that
Eddie.
was your voice.
Yes,
I was
Eddie's
actually
voice from Van's desk.
Yeah, okay. I was actually thinking about that when I was talking about the raw land earlier,
Yeah.
and I believe that we could find that workable if the proposal act could demonstrate to us that it's going to be completed, because this is infrastructure heavy, and so we would want the proposal to show us where the money's going and what
Yeah.
the timeline is, and that there is enough secured funding to finish the project if all the Barnes funding was drawn, because obviously it's a subdivision, you're going to have to be bonded for the completion of it. So that's a check that we could use to say, we know that this is going to be completed. So,
And we'll do all we can to help that happen. I mean, we're really with you on that. It's just
Yeah.
the part
No.
that we don't control.
Right.
That's just frustrating for everybody. You know, we could do it in 2 years if we could get through I think the water said it used to be a 14-day period. So if we had that, we could get it all done. We don't have that.
Yeah, we'll follow up. We'll clarify that. I'm glad you raised that point, because it flashed in my brain as soon as I started talking about the raw land. And I know on other projects I've worked in other capacities how we've structured things like this. But like I said, if we would have to see that the project is fully covered to be completed with another source of funds if all the Barnes was drawn, and that we would want to see a draw schedule. So that
okay.
that shows that.
Let me just follow up. This is Dan now. So the draw schedule could be different as long as we support documentation and not necessarily based on the vertical percentage of completion. Is what you're saying, right?
Sorry, I keep muting and unmuting myself.
That's all right.
We wouldn't want 100% of the funds to be drawn up front and then be done in 6 months and still the project hasn't even started going vertical. We would want to see something in there unless you're really tied up with stormwater. So we'll think about that, but just know that we're open to what you're saying. We'll talk internally and get some guidance back out to you by tomorrow morning, because I know there's a timeline. But
That's fine. Well,
you raise a good point on this about taking a piece of raw land like this and trying to subdivide it and get all the infrastructure done before you can even go vertical. So we will talk about a way for to give you some clarity on that. But yes, we would be open to that.
all right. Well, here's just a follow-up issue that we're having trouble with. Since we just now got permission and have a drawing of the 2 blocks that we're going to build there, there could be condos. We don't have architect plans, and we can't have them. So what form can these plans be in, or can we just verbally describe to you or send you pictures of what we've done before and say they will be like this?
Whatever we offer a range for you guys to tell us what level of plans you have. If you've got stock plans that that could fit on this site, or if you've just got sketch drawings, wherever you are in this process,
Thank you.
Submit that.
Thanks.
But Angie, that will be affected by how scoring is done. Is that right?
Yes, I mean we define that in the matrix.
Yes, so the scoring will be affected by how far along your plans are. But yeah, you definitely can submit whatever. Just know that if somebody comes in that's got theirs that is further along, then how that comes in as completion. Sorry guys, my dogs are going crazy in the background. Okay, what other questions?
Oh, and let me say this about the timeline. We didn't even know that we were going to get these properties. We have been working with water for months and months and months, and it has taken that long to get it to a place through all the legal requirements. So we were just grateful to put them out there. If no one proposes, if there are other sites, we'll make them available in another round. But just, yeah. And we know it's kind of like last minute. We weren't even sure till the legislation was filed 2 weeks ago that this was going to happen. So, anyway, that's kind of the backstory on the timing of the properties.
Other questions from folks? Oh, let me mention one thing about the council meeting when we did have the properties is that the councilman for this particular property actually stood up in council and talked about how excited that he was and his district was for having this affordable housing coming in. One of the other councilwomen actually pulled the resolution off consent so that she could talk about how awesome this was. So I say that because it doesn't sound like this is going to be an NIMBY situation. It sounds like this is going to be something where folks are saying, hey, that's great that we're getting this vacant lot and putting housing on it. So just wanted y'all to know that. All right. If no other questions, we do have like I said, the website has been updated. Everything should be ready for folks to be able to get all the information they need. I think the applications are also have been updated and should be. You just click on the same link on the Barnes site that you would. And we've included all the stuff for the property. As I mentioned, you'll need to go in and use the property request form and make sure you are requesting this Jacksonian Drive property for this grant. And if you're applying for the other grant, the cooperative housing grant, then you want to apply for the Hagen Street. So just make sure that you're paying attention to which one you're requesting and that it fits the project that you've got. And as Angie said, if we end up, if folks don't end up coming in with applications that look like they're going to work for this, then those properties will go into future rounds. This is a philosophy. I don't know exactly what to call it. Our hope is that this is not the last of the properties owned by other metro departments that we can do. This is a real passion for us at Housing and at the Barnes Fund to try to get surplus properties out there as much as we can. So.
Hey, Karen,
Mary Beth.
I ask one more real quick?
Give 1 second, Brian. Let me get Mary Beth real quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's just any recognition on potential trade-offs in the scoring criteria for, like, it looks like the site is not very transit accessible, green features, sometimes water doesn't want, benches and play equipment in that floodplain. And so there could be some trade-offs in terms of that layer of scoring criteria you've got at the end on sustainability and transit access with this particular parcel.
Sure. I would say on the scoring matrix is really designed to help our reviewers know how to place somebody. And so I would say, if you've got a great project and I don't know, if maybe you're working with parks and you're going to be able to put in a playground or somebody's working on a playground and you bring that up in your application, make the best case you can. We will be as flexible as we can within the facts that we do have that these are ARPA dollars. And so there's no flexibility from our standpoint to, on meeting what they've required of us. So we'll be as flexible as we can. But Mary Beth, I would say, this is not a hard grader kind of professor where you're like, oh gosh, I missed this by a second. We want to give folks as many points as we can. We just want to make sure that it's going to be successful.
And let me add, we recognize where this property is located, and some of the answers of something like near the core is going to be different than here. So they will be evaluated against other proposals for this property, if that makes sense. And so where evaluators would likely look to is more in the marketing and the other non-site specific things that the proposals, because the site is the site, and so everybody's going to have similar answers around access to transit, healthy food, the walkability of the neighborhood. And so that the other places where they would look at then would be in the evaluation would be those other areas. So I think that's what maybe you were getting at with the trade-off, Mary Beth. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Getting that maximum number of units versus the other amenities and transit access that y'all laid out in the scoring criteria. And also the location being where it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. Brian, you had a question?
So if we determined that we could do something at a larger scale by, say, layering Barnes and other sources with 9% housing tax credits, Is that something that you would welcome? I mean, the units would then be restricted as rental for 15 years under sort of lease purchase paradigm, but then would be eligible for home ownership to qualified tenants in year 16. Or is this,
that would not.
you want this right away, right?
No, this is shared equity right away. Again, to
Okay.
do what you're talking about, we require a policy change and a rezoning.
Okay.
And no, this is intended to be shared equity homeownership from day one.
Okay. Angie, you mentioned a study or I don't know if it was a case study or not, but earlier in the call that we should reference for better understanding shared equity.
Oh, Grounded Solutions is a
Grounded Solutions,
national expert on this.
Okay.
Model.
Thank you.
Great. Any last questions as we wrap up? All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here and for spending your next to last day before Christmas vacation with us.
I got it.
Let me add one
Yeah.
thing. So thank you all for your patience. These ARPA funds, we took the opportunity to try to be a creative and responsive to things that we're hearing are housing security challenges in Nashville. We want to use these opportunities with the 3 different grants to introduce innovation to funders, to the Trust Fund Commission, to perhaps roll in and see more regular proposals and regular rounds. So we're all in this together on these innovative things. And so your grace and patience are much appreciated. So thank you. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday.
And we appreciate your grace and patience as well. So thank you, Angie and planning team. We really appreciate everything you've been doing for us. And let's keep doing what we do.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Go have a safe holiday and we'll see you back in the new year.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Okay, bye, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.